After saying goodbye, it felt good to have a regular dinner after spending weeks in endless tunnels, filling up on granola bars. But when Percy went to leave some offerings to his dad in the brazier, he noticed Nico walking towards the woods. Percy remembered how he lost Nico on winter break just by running into the woods. He couldn't let that happen again, so he quietly followed him. After a few minutes of walking, he caught Nico in the distance, talking to the ghostly form of Bianca. She smiled at him, and then her image faded. "We missed you at dinner," Percy said. "You could have sat with me. You know you can't miss every meal." "Look, Nico, if you don't want to stay in the Hermes cabin, maybe Chiron can make an exception and put you in the big house. There's plenty of spare rooms." "I'm not staying, Percy," he said. "But you can't just leave. It's too dangerous out there, especially for children of the eldest gods. You need to train." "I train with the dead," he said. "This camp isn't for me." "Percy, I think there's a reason there's no cabin for children of Hades. He doesn't have a throne on Olympus. He's not welcome. He doesn't belong there. I don't belong here." "Where will you go?" Percy asked. "I got tons of questions, like, who's my mother? Who paid for my school? Who was that lawyer who got us out of the Lotus Hotel? I know nothing about my past. I gotta find out." "Makes sense," Percy admitted. "I hope we don't have to be enemies." "I'm sorry I was mad," Nico said. "I should have listened to you about Bianca." Percy fished something out of his pocket. It was the little mytho-magic Hades figurine Nico had abandoned when he fled camp back in winter break. Nico hesitated. "I don't play that game anymore. It's for kids." "It's got 4,000 attack power," Percy said. 5,000, Nico corrected. "But only if your opponent attacks first." Percy smiled. "Well, maybe it's okay to still be a kid every once in a while." "Thanks," Nico said. "Now, I got a lot of things to invest." Percy still wanted to argue. Part of him didn't like it, but part of him also knew he was right. Nico would have to find his own way. "Well, okay," he said. "Keep in touch, Nico." He trudged off into the woods and disappeared behind the trees. The rest of the summer seemed strange, probably because it seemed so normal. Daily activities continued: archery, rock climbing, Pegasus riding, playing capture the flag, campfire songs, and playing practical jokes on other cabins. Everyone tried to keep as far away as possible from Zeus's fist. Percy didn't notice at first, but at some point, Mr. D had healed Chris Rodriguez. Mr. D couldn't decide if he did it because Chris reminded him of losing one of his sons, or that he believed Chris deserved a second chance. Or maybe because it seemed to actually make Clarice happy. When Percy noticed that, he couldn't help but feel happy for them. July 4th finally came, and the Hephaestus cabin launched fireworks above the beach. Percy made arrangements to leave Mrs. O'Leary at camp. Chiron promised she'd be looked after, and Percy and Tyson would take turns visiting her during the year. Annabeth seemed to be avoiding Percy. He wasn't sure when that started, but it kinda hurt. He was really relieved that she survived her quest, and he wanted to talk to her more about Kronos. But now, he couldn't do that anymore without bringing up Luke, and that was one subject he couldn't raise. She would shut him out every time he tried. The rest of the month wasn't much. In fact, it seemed to just pass in the blink of an eye. Finally, it was August 16th, the last day at camp. At 10 o'clock, Percy stood on the top of Half-Blood Hill, waiting for the camp van that would take him home. Percy had hoped Annabeth would ride into Manhattan with him, but she only came to see him off. She'd arranged to stay at camp a little longer, so she could tend to Chiron just until he was fully recovered. Then, she would head back to her father's place in San Francisco. "There's a private school up there that I'll be going to," she said. "I'll probably hate it, but..." she shrugged. "Well, call me, okay?" "Sure," she said, half-heartedly. "I'll keep my eyes open for..." There it was again. She couldn't even say his name without opening up a huge hole in her heart. "Annabeth," Percy said, "what was the rest of the prophecy?" "You shall delve into darkness of the endless maze," Percy remembered, "the dead, the traitor, and the lost one raised." "We did see a lot of ghosts on the quest," he continued. "We saved Ethan Nakamura, who turned out to be a traitor. Pan was the lost one, and we raised a spirit. You shall rise or fall by the Ghost King's hand, which turned out to be Nico. He made the choice to help us, and he got rid of Minos." "And the child of Athena's final stand," Annabeth said. "I was scared it was talking about me, but then I remembered Daedalus was a child of Athena too." "Yes," Percy said, "that makes sense now. Daedalus died to destroy the Labyrinth. But what was the last part?" "Destroy with a hero's final breath," she said, "and lose a love to worse than death." She blinked a tear in her eye. "That was the last line, Percy. Are you happy now?" "Oh," he said, "so Luke?" "Percy, I swear I didn't know who the prophecy was talking about. I didn't know if—" She faltered helplessly. "Luke and I, for years, he was the only one who really cared about me. I thought—" Before she could continue, a blinding light appeared next to her. "You have nothing to apologize for, my dear." "Hera?" Annabeth cried. The goddess smiled. "You found the answers as I knew you would. Your quest was a success." "A success?" Annabeth said. "Luke is gone. Daedalus is dead. Pan is dead. How is that a success?" "Those others are better off," Hera said, "and our family is safe, all thanks to you." "You're the one who paid Geryon to let us in the ranch, weren't you?" Percy said. "I wanted to speed you on your way," she said. "But you didn't care about whatever happened to Nico. I'll bet you wouldn't even care if he had turned over to the Titans." "Oh, please, hero. The son of Hades said it himself. He does not belong. No one wants him around." "Hephaestus was right about you," Percy growled. "You only care about perfect families, not real people." "You watch your tongue, son of Poseidon," Hera warned. "I guided you on your journey much more than you know, and more than any Olympian ever dared. I was at your side when you faced Geryon. It was I who let your arrows fly. I let you land safely on Calypso's island. I opened the way in the maze that led you straight to the Titan's palace." "Annabeth, my dear, surely you can see how I've helped. I would suggest a sacrifice for my efforts." Annabeth stood as still as a statue. She could have just simply thanked the goddess. She could have promised to throw some barbecue in the brazier for her and forget the whole thing. But she clenched her jaw so tight, she looked even more angry than she had when she faced the Sphinx, like she wasn't going to accept an easy answer, even if it got her into serious trouble. Percy realized that was one of the things he liked best about Annabeth. She was about to say something to the goddess that she was probably going to regret for the rest of her life. "Percy is right," she growled. "You're the one who doesn't belong. So next time, thanks but no thanks." Hera's sneer was worse than an Empusa's. Her form began to glow. "You will regret this, Annabeth Chase. You will regret this for the rest of your short, monster-invested life." They shielded their eyes as the goddess turned into her true divine form and disappeared into a flash of light. I'm sorry, Percy," Annabeth said. "I should get back." Percy thought about Mount St. Helens, Calypso's island, and about Rachel, and how suddenly everything gotten so complicated. He wanted to tell Annabeth he really didn't want to be so distant from her. Then Argus honked his horn down the road, and he lost his chance. "You'd better get going," she said. "I'll keep in touch. Take care, Seaweed Brain." "Annabeth," he called. But she kept running. Without looking back, he headed to the van, on his way back to the mortal world once again.